So welcome, everyone. Welcome again. I feel really blessed to be with you to practice today. So our parsha this week tells the story of the splitting of the sea, that moment when Israel stood at the edge of impossibility and they walked through on dry land between walls of water. And so I've been thinking about this image this week and wanted to play with it in our meditation practice today, because it strikes me that this is part of what we do in our mindfulness practice. We kind of come to the edge of the sea. We come to the edge of what seems impossible, often encountering, just in the simple sitting, overwhelming emotion, difficult sensation, pain, troubling thought, impenetrable boredom. Whatever comes up in the sit comes up, and we practice walking through. We practice being with it, going towards it, even when it looks like there's not a way through. And so there's a midrash that I find really stunning about what exactly the water looked like when the sea parted. And I'll put it on the screen for you. So this is from Pesachta Rav Kahana, and I'll just read it through and then explain it. So a midrash, an interpretive story on what the sea looked like. Rabbi Yochanan once asked his students to describe the appearance of the walls of the Red Sea when the waters parted for the children of Israel to cross. When none could do so, Rabbi Yochanan described them as resembling a window lattice. Then, all at once, they heard a voice say, "No, it was not like that at all." And when they looked up, they saw the face of a very old woman peering in the window of the house of study. "Who are you?" demanded Rabbi Yochanan. "I am Serach bat Asher," came the reply. "And I know exactly what the walls resembled. I was there, I crossed the Red Sea, and they resembled shining mirrors in which every man, woman, and child was reflected, so that it seemed like an even greater multitude crossed there, not only those of the present, but also those of the past and future as well." And when Serach had finished speaking, none dared contradict her, for her knowledge was firsthand. This is an interpretive translation by Howard Schwartz. So what's happening here in this midrash? Here, Rabbi Yochanan, this is a 3rd century rabbi who lived a long, long time after the parting of the sea. Right? He's teaching his students who are like us, imagining that iconic moment, right? They don't know what it was like firsthand. And he imagines the water looked a certain way. And then suddenly an old woman's voice interrupts him, and it's Serach, who's Jacob's granddaughter, who, according to legend, is kind of a centuries-old memory keeper. She shows up in big moments to show the way. She says, "I was actually there, and it wasn't like that. The walls looked like mirrors where all the ancestors and all the future beings were somehow together in one moment." And so what moves me about this teaching is a few things. The first is Serach's insistence on her lived experience, right? She was there. She knows what it was like to walk towards impossibility and come out on the other side. And what she saw was not just walls keeping water back. She saw reflection, right? She saw connection. And it just strikes me that this has some similarity to our mindfulness practice, that when we turn toward difficulty, when we turn toward a sea where the way is not yet clear, we say yes to kind of moving towards that, to crossing the sea, walking through, and we say yes to getting more intimate with experience so that we can say, "I was there." We sometimes, as we move closer to experience, we see what it's actually like, that that challenging thought, that pain, that difficult emotion, we create a sort of mirror wall, right? We see ourselves. We can see things clearly, including ourselves. And sometimes we even get a glimpse of not being alone, right? That countless others have walked through their own impossible seas. Sometimes you can get an insight of, oh, this is just what it's like to be in a human body. Because there's this universalizing element to it. Oh, I'm not alone here in this sadness. Sadness is an experience passing through my human experience. So this is one of the gifts of mindfulness is a walking through, an ability to say yes to walking through the waters, and then to get to say, I was there, and this is what it's really like. Discovering how things really are, sometimes even seeing ourselves more clearly because of it. So we'll explore that in our practice today. If you want to start to find a comfortable position, if you're not there already, comfortable enough. And just letting the body settle. You might unclench the hands and see if the face relaxes, the belly relaxes. And just letting the attention settle on whatever anchor will be your anchor today. Breath, contact of the hands, the lap, or sound. Just settling on an anchor. And just staying here with the simplicity of that anchor, with the inhale and the exhale. And then when the mind gets lost and you find yourself somewhere else in some thought world, just come right back. The power of Serach's testimony is that she speaks from lived experience. She says, I was there. And so in mindfulness, we too are learning to speak from the experience of actually being there with whatever is here. With the sea when it looks like an impossibility to get through, and with the way through, actually just staying here, not from concepts, but from actual presence. I was there with my grief. I was there with my joy. I was there with my fear. So you might experiment with whenever you get lost, just a gentle celebration that you're back. You can say, I'm here. I was there. What does it mean to be there for this breath? or this one. Being there for the waters of this moment. close with a song that you can treat as practice if you can stay in the sit. This is from There Are More Waters Rising by Sarah Lynch Thomason. Just really resonated with this image of walking towards the waters, even when menacing, and really being there. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. There are more waters rising, they will find their way to me. There are more waters rising, this I know, this I know. There are more waters rising, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. I will wade through the waters, this I know, this I know. I will wade through the waters, this I know. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Chloe Zelkha, leading us beautifully today. Let's seal that practice again, as we always do each day, with an opportunity. Those of you who are in mourning, if it's your custom, if you have a custom to join in Mourner's Kaddish, or if you have a yard site, you can put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat now or after you recite the Mourner's Kaddish. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask that you please just stay present for a few moments to support those who are with your compassion and love. And thanks to Harry for sharing the words on the screen. If you're reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time.
Yitadal, Shmei Rabba,
Yamal Tivate, Lich Matute, Yisrael Shmei Rabba Mivarach, Lamei Amariyah, Ram V'Yitavei, Ilam Min Kol Birkata B'Shirata, Miran Ba'alma, Friends, thanks so much for joining us today, for leaving us now. We hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be sitting into Shabbat, led by David Gottlieb, the Spurs Institute in Chicago, just a beautiful Jewish mindfulness meditation teacher. And we hope to see you then. But of course, you're welcome, and we hope you'll stay on if you can to join us to share reflections on today's beautiful teaching and the practice. And if you'd like to ask a question of Rabbi Chloe, you can put that in the chat. You can just write question all in caps, and that helps me keep an eye out for your questions. Thanks once more to Harry Gilboa for holding our space faithfully, skillfully, as always, and to Janet Fab Zen for sponsoring our practice today, and loving memory of Deborah Cameron and Alan Sobel. Thanks so much, Janet. We appreciate it. So let's invite Chloe in and see a request for the words from the song in the chat. Maybe we can put the words in the chat as well. There we go. And again, oh, there it is. It's all there. Chloe's on it. Okay, thanks so much. Yesterday, Chloe, we were Rabbi Jenny Solomon led us. Yesterday, we were talking about the use of Torah narrative as framing, for framing
Mm,
practice. And so at the beginning, when Jenny was teaching, she was talking about it, as if it was in the past tense and happened to the Israelites. And then she made it, went to the collective
mm.
first person, like, we were walking, we're there. So I just want to bring that, I just want to like bring that thread into the conversation, because I actually never heard or thought of meditation practice using the narrative at the sea of walking through the water as a metaphor or as a framing for entering into practice. And
Mm.
when you said that, I actually I realized there's a part of me that, like the Israelites at the sea, said, I don't think so. No thanks. You know, I want to just go back to what I was doing. I don't want to do this. There's some resistance, I guess what I'm saying, which was very interesting to me. Of course, there's a part also that says, yeah, let's go. But there's, also this inner voice that is, or in our inchoate sense of not wanting to do it. So thanks for that. And I'm a little bit wondering whether other people or what it's like to stand at the shore as we're beginning, as we're sitting down, what that's like, right? There's assumption, oh, let's go, let's move through. But the story is otherwise. The story is much more complicated. There's an ambivalence that's there's an ambivalence, I guess. Okay, to get to the chase. So thanks for that. So the question, I guess, is, how do you feel when you sitting, when you're entering into it? And then then I really would love to talk about the midrash, um,
Yeah.
mirrors.
Yeah. I mean, the resistance, I feel like it's a constant refrain, like the hardest part of having a meditation practice is actually sitting on the cushion. Like once you're actually sitting or sitting on the
Mhm.
chair, or whatever, or opening the Zoom in this case, like once you're actually there, there's some, momentum, but even so, it's like, I feel like it's part of practice is in every moment making the choice to take the next step through it's like just a never ending process of choosing to
Right.
continue to be here. And sometimes, your mind, it can be pleasant or unpleasant, right? Like the unpleasant is often more salient, but there's also oh, I really loved imagining about that in the middle of practice,
Right.
or I was really getting some amazing work done. Um, and
Yeah.
so, but I do think it's at its core, the mindfulness practice is a practice of freedom and walking towards freedom. So,
Hmm.
uh, similar to the Israelites. And then on the other side, I guess we sang, right? So just like they did, but
Yeah. Yeah. This is the singing time. Well, you ended with a song, right?
right.
Which was different than beginning with a song.
Yeah.
So, um, the let's the I think the part of the reason for me, part of the reason for the resistance is what you described in unpacking the midrash a little bit. This midrash, and thanks, by the way, as an aside, for bringing in this character, Serach Bat Asher, who's like, I think the only granddaughter of Jacob is she's included as one of the 70 that
Yeah.
go down into Egypt. And the only granddaughter, like 53 grandsons, I think, and one granddaughter or something. And she pops up here with this wisdom, which is amazing. Like think like she's an eyewitness. She's there, right? It's amazing. So the mirror, the idea of the walls being mirrors, and you invited us to say, when we're walking through and we're like looking in the mirror and we're seeing what's actually happening
Mm,
for us. There's something that like we can know it from intuitively from the inside, but there's something about it being reflected back to say like,
mm,
oh, you look, like just when we look in the mirror, you say like, oh, you look scared. Oh,
mm,
your face, I can see anxiety in your face, or I can see whatever fill in the blank in your face, right?
Mm.
And you invite us to say yes to that. Whatever you see in the mirror, say yes, right? That's the practice, right? Is that what you said? Yes.
You got
Yeah.
it.
Say yes, whatever it is, whatever you see in the mirror, just keep saying yes, and you will move through the waters in that way. And then there's the other part, which is very powerful also, which is that you're not just seeing yourself, you're seeing
Mm.
everybody else. And she goes beyond that to say like everybody through all time, right? So
Yeah.
you're not alone in this,
Mm.
which tempers the anxiety, I guess. Like
Mm.
everybody's doing this. Everybody is looking and
Mm.
saying like, what is real? What is true? Yes,
Mm.
yes, 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 all the way through to the other side. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty great. I was thinking kind of a disco ball effect there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I love the midrash for so many reasons, but it's cool to be seeing ourselves in both the student in both in it's like such a time traveling midrash because it's like
Mhm.
we have a group of students who are cracking open Torah and imagining like we are. So we see ourselves in them, but we also see ourselves as the Israelites crossing the sea. And we're like us talking to us about
Mhm.
what it was really like. But it's a prompt to be opening our eyes to what it's actually like right now too.
Yeah.
And especially the universalizing impulse of it that you see yourself clearly and you also see everyone else felt really resonant with the mindfulness practice to me. So one of the most healing aspects I feel like of sitting and getting comfortable with sitting is that you see it all, right? You see the whole human experience. You see boredom and grief and fear and rage and joy and assuredness and ego and letting go of ego. And you see it all and you see how it's not about you. And so you see everyone else.
Mm.
And
Right.
there's some therapeutic, I mean, I once read that like there's some like deeply therapy, like a therapist try to universalize experience, like, oh, grief, that's just part of being alive. That's what we see in the practice ourselves constantly. So there's some real, I don't know, in the Serach story, it's inspiring. And then it's also just so like healing.
Yeah. I don't want to, I don't want to like veer into politics per se, but that teaching that you just expressed very beautifully strikes me as really very much of the moment where like seeing the truth of something clearly
Mm,
as opposed to distortions or the lies, right? When it's collected, when like there's so many people who see what
mm,
the truth, right?
mm,
That kind of overpowers any attempt to repress or push aside or avoid, and you kind of move forward in a way that you didn't think maybe you could. So
mm,
it's kind of really, I'm taking that as a very
mm,
powerful teaching, and also it takes courage, right? It's a
mm.
courageous. The practice is courageous, and it certainly is not navel gazing. Like that's the other thing,
No,
right?
yeah. Yeah, the practice is so courageous. I feel that's to me, like one of the most powerful things about when I've just been on a retreat. I have this sense in my life. I can, when something challenging comes up, I can be here for this, right? Because you have so much practice. It's like the muscle is strong. You've been lifting weights, so you feel strong enough to whatever happens today. I'll
Hmm.
be here. You know, there's some stability, and it's not that there's stability in life and as you mentioned like the political sphere right now, just like life is like not stable, right? There's not protection or safety, but there is some safety in our own ability to show up, and you start to actually get some resonance that safety is, there's something to that. That's not just an
Hmm.
idea, you've experienced it, and so the heart gets stronger and stronger.
Let's stick with the mirrors for a second too. There's like it's such a rich metaphor. Um, I'm thinking about like a house of mirrors, which is also disorienting as to place and time. Like, if you ever gone through, a fun house or whatever, a house of mirrors, right?
Yeah,
Um, it's an interesting experience. Like, if I'm just imagining walking through this, like
yeah.
field of mirrors where it's not linear. It's not really clear,
Mm,
necessarily where you're going. You're just like taking one step forward also involves a lot of trust and that you can't really
mm,
kind of totally orient yourself
mm,
about where you are. You can only
mm.
focus on like where you are. Nice going, Sarah, Bot Asher.
Yeah,
That's
that's such a cool, I mean, it's a good point. It's like here, it's kind of, I don't know, I read the feeling tone as like pleasant and powerful and inspiring, but it's true. It could be, it's incredibly disorienting and maybe even
Mhm.
scary to be walking through a sea that suddenly the waters turn into mirrors. And so there's something about the continuing walking that becomes more powerful.
Yeah, and you also said at some point I wanted to like just underline and say amen to the awareness that it's not about us, which is interesting. That it starts, we start with ourselves. This practice of starting with ourselves, but not ending with ourselves. Like we start by investigating our experience, and that leads us to consciousness of something that is beyond, both in terms of community, but also just a reality that
Mm,
is that's transcendent. We start with the imminent, start with, God is in this place, and we just like,
mm.
wow. And then only like interesting, then you all of a sudden they're like standing on dry land on the other side and said, like, how did that happen? How did we get here? But here's the other thing. Okay, I want to throw this in. We have a few more minutes, and I want to devote at least 1 minute to hear you let people know about the retreat
Oh,
you're
yeah.
doing, um, which is, crossing the sea involved a lot of death, and
Mm,
right in
mm,
terms of something dies along the way.
mm,
So I don't want to put you on the spot here, Rabbi, but can we work that in some way in terms of not our external enemies dying, but something,
mm,
that there's some that this process you're describing, the practice process, and you've like laid out in a lot of different pieces here, that there's um, relief and grief also kind of
mm.
involved in it in some way.
Yeah.
According to the Midrash, the Israelites were allowed to cheer about that, right? But
Mm,
but the angels weren't, right?
mm.
There's a sadness and loss and grief.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got
Yeah. I
anything on
mean,
that?
when we're present with things as they are, and when we say yes to like stepping into whatever oceans of the moment there are,
Hmm.
one of the first things we see is that everything's changing, is that there's impermanence and there's
Hmm.
loss and it's not just that things will change, is that everything, that our anchor, that this breath is changing, that, right? Like there's just constant loss and regeneration. And I mean, I think that's why grief is often one of the most powerful mindfulness teachers. First of all, it's incredibly focusing
Right,
towards being right here, but it also, yeah, it's if the practice is really studying the way of the world via our own lived experience, grief is just one of the most salient of our own lived experiences, and so it points us right there and wakes us up to
right.
being here while we can.
Yeah. It definitely evokes awe, right?
Right.
Right. It
In
evokes
all
awe.
of its, in its fear way and its beauty
Yeah,
way. And yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. So why don't you, first of all, I just want to remind people that Chloe is rabbi of this congregation in Cambridge. So if you or people in that area looking for something that's IJSE, there's a place in Cambridge where you can find that. Um, what can you tell us about the
Yeah.
retreat?
And we run contemplative practice retreats regularly. And our next one is one for the beginning of Adar, beginning of the month of where Purim will visit us. It's February 20th to 21st. It's a Shabbat retreat. So we'll do Kabbalat Shabbat and people go home and then share a full day of meditation practice. And the teachers are me and Carrie Watkins, amazing, also Shevet or Halev IJS teacher. Um, and yeah, just a full day of sit, walk, eat, singing, meditation, and meeting people who are interested in kind of hopefully like-minded folks. So
All in person, right? Right.
all in person, yeah,
Yeah.
all in person, and if you're here in Cambridge or in Boston, come join us for we do contemplative singing, we do musical Shabbat. Yeah.
Great. I'm seeing people may want to be able to get in touch with you. What's the best way to contact you? Okay.
You can contact me through my website, which is just chloezelka.com. It's good.
Okay. Great. All right. All right. Thanks so much, Chloe. It was a
Okay.
beautiful
Thanks for
practice
having me,
today.
Rob. Nice.
Always. Okay, everyone. Thanks to Harry. Thanks to Janet for sponsoring today. Thanks again, as always, for each of you. Like we all see the whole crowd in the mirror and in the Zoom rectangles that we walk through every day, and it is always a blessing to get to walk together and practice together with you. Hope to see you tomorrow to sit into Shabbat. Take good care, everyone. Many blessings.